Detroit, Michigan, and Sam. Hello, Sam, Professor Madden, and Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. Hi, Professor Madden. Great show, great topic. Love it, love it.
Thank you, thank you.
When we hear rationalizations given for Arab Christian or Muslim Christian tensions today, the Muslim perpetrators always go back to the Crusades as the starting point, and the media lets them get away with this. I even heard a quote from former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, at least giving validity to that complaint on their part. What is it in the Muslim theology that makes them forget the wars of conquest 400 years earlier, and why does the media and whatever there is allow this misconception of history to persist?
Well, as far as misconceptions on the Crusades go, they're so common that I don't really blame any one segment for having them.
Why don't you give a list of a couple of misconceptions?
Well, one would be that the Crusades were offensive wars against a peaceful Muslim Middle East. They were the exact opposite. They were defensive wars that were fought as direct reaction to Muslim aggression. So that's probably the biggest one. Another one is that the purpose of the Crusades was to expand Christianity, when in fact it had nothing at all to do with expanding Christianity.
What would a Muslim historian answer you? Would he acknowledge that it was Christians defending themselves against Muslim wars?
Sure. I don't think what I am saying about the Crusades is really no real doubt among historians. All you have to do is read the sources from the time, and it's fairly clear. But the question that had to do with why is it that people so often say, well, the current struggle between the Middle East and the West actually began with the Crusades, is completely false. The fact is that the Crusades were a tiny little pinprick to the Muslim empires. In fact, the Muslims at the time didn't even really understand what they were. They were really just too small to notice. And by 1291, the entire kingdom of Jerusalem was gone. And Crusades, in the medieval Muslim world, there was very little interest in what went on in the infidel world. And so they didn't care why these people were coming and waging war, because it just wasn't important in their history. The interesting thing is that if you had asked someone in the Middle East in the 19th century what the Crusades were, no one would have known what you were talking about. They only discovered the Crusades in the 20th century when European colonial powers came and set up schools and said, these Crusades happened back in the Middle Ages.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. Thomas Madden, The New Concise History of the Crusades. I'm Dennis Prager. Thomas Madden, professor of history, has written The New Concise History of the Crusades. So let me understand then, Professor, and you're cited by scholars around the world for your work, so you're not an apologist for anybody. That seems clear to me. But this notion then that the Crusaders humiliated the Islamic world and are remembered for centuries as a time of terrible persecution and humiliation, you don't feel that that's true?
No, it's not true at all. In fact, if you consider what actually happened, the Crusades ended in the Middle East because the Muslim empires crushed the Crusaders and expelled them from the region. And then after that, when you go into the 14th and 15th and 16th centuries, Muslim empires continued to expand to even greater heights of power and wealth and prestige. In fact, the Ottoman Empire in the 14th century came into Europe itself and continued to press into Europe, so that by the 16th century, you had the Ottoman armies outside of Vienna. And it had not been for freak rainstorms that year, they would have conquered Vienna as well. So the big picture of this was that the Christian world continued to get smaller and smaller despite the Crusades. And the Muslim world continued to grow and become more and more powerful despite the Crusades. And that's why, for the Christians, the Crusades were kind of a last-ditch, desperate effort. And for the Muslims, they were insignificant.
Well, this hour was worth it for many reasons, but not. I guess the largest of which is people really don't know that the Crusades were not done to spread Christianity.
No, that's right. It had nothing at all to do with
nothing whatsoever.
No. In fact, they were forbidden precisely to spread Christianity. There was no proselytization by the sword is forbidden had been forbidden in Christianity since its very beginning. It's just not part of the religion, and so it was never done. Most of the people who lived in the what are called the Crusader kingdoms, or the Kingdom of Jerusalem, were Muslim, and they remained Muslim just as they had before, and would remain after the kingdom was gone.
Phil in Milwaukee wants to know how accurate the movie Kingdom of Heaven was.
It's not accurate at all. It's actually a very accurate depiction of what a Hollywood producer would think the Crusades in fact were.
That's a very funny way of putting it. It's an accurate depiction of nonsense.
That's right.
That's what you're saying. Thomas Madden, thank you for your time. I suspect you'll get a lot of readers from this.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. The book, again, is The New Concise History of the Crusades. This is worth its weight in gold this hour. Oh, God, what myths abound in our world. Don't go away. You're listening to The Dennis Prager Show.